More poetry. From Langston Hughes, I am so tired of waiting, aren't you? For the world to become good and beautiful and kind. Let us take a knife and cut the world in two and see what the worms are eating at the Rind. So, I have returned to the pulpit with the theme of evil at hand. It's not exactly what I would have asked for my first Sunday back. What a doozy. But when I started back in February thinking about what I would preach about today, I thought, I'll talk to you all about theodicy. Theodicy is a concept that God cannot be all-powerful and all-good at the same time, because evil exists. If God was all good and all-powerful, there would be no evil, right? So your God can be only one or the other. Take your pick. It's a really interesting theological conundrum, but honestly, I find myself a little shruggy about evil sometimes. It exists. Yeah, definitely. The why is actually a little less interesting to me than the what do we do about it. And the whole God as puppet master thing is not a concept I really am that invested in. So I searched my soul for what it was that I would preach about with regard to evil these days, because the fact of the matter is evil abounds. And then, 16 days ago, Russia invaded Ukraine. There was now yet another violent and brutal conflict between nations, and I knew then what I would speak about today, of the evil that wrenches my heart so profoundly right now. It is the evil of war. We, with war, are forced to absorb the pain and the heartache that comes with knowing that more of our kin, our siblings in this human existence, are engulfed in the storm of war. Alice Walker writes, "Picture a donkey peacefully sniffing a pile of straw. A small boy holds the end of its frayed rope bridle." Alice Walker writes, "Picture a woman beside a window. She is blissful, singing a lullaby. A baby twirls a lock of her dark hair. Ordinary lives," she writes of, ordinary people engulfed in the storm of war. I am never more acutely aware of those strings which bind my life to unknown lives when the images of war are splashed across the front pages of our papers. We, as Unitarian Universalists, we believe in an interconnected web of all existence, and I feel those strings plucked painfully, vibrating with the drop of every bomb. Like the kickback of a gun, my soul reverberates with sadness at the lives upended, like the little boy and his donkey, ordinary people, ordinary lives extinguished. It is the evil of war that makes our souls ache, knowing that the love that exists within families is being exploded as fathers die, as sisters are left behind, as uncles are forcibly recruited to fight, as cousins are orphaned, as grandmothers huddle in basements, waiting in the dark. Are you troubled, as am I, by the images in your mind that take root, that the father might be your father, that the mother could be your mother, that the grandparent is you? Your creaky sit bones painfully pressed to the cement floor of the cellar for hours, growing sore as you wonder fearfully if today is the day you meet your maker. We, as Unitarian Universalists, we don't believe in a hell that exists after we die, but war is hell, and it is here on earth, here and now. War is hell. for the way it gnaws at the threads of our soul, for the way it makes us think that good can come from evil, that on the other side of war is something better. The poet Robert Hayden once wrote, "We must not be frightened or cajoled into accepting evil as our deliverance from evil. War will never bring peace. It will simply end in the absence of war, thousands upon thousands grieving and broken. War is hell, and it is hell on both sides, on all sides. War twists us into thinking that some are good guys and some are bad guys, but that Russian boy I saw on Instagram couldn't have been more than 20, snot streaming down as he hungrily ate a sandwich, FaceTiming his mother on a borrowed phone, now a prisoner of war, captured by Ukrainian soldiers, his full humanity on display. He's not the bad guy. Recruited to fight for a despot he doesn't know, scared to die and never see his mom again. He is not the bad guy. He is simply being eaten up by war, caught in its mouth, being swallowed whole. Alice Walker's words echo, "War has bad manners. War eats everything in its path." For despite the news of valiant fighting and of banding together to conquer and vanquish the true enemy, to push back invasive forces, we must remember that war deals in myth-making. When war breaks out, we are subject to a new round of stories that make our hearts swell with cheap grace. Stories of babies born in bunkers, delivered by unproven hands, stories of units made up of entirely hardened women who possess grit unknown until now, stories of veterans re-enlisting, re-upping, returning to the theater of war, and we applaud their bravery. We get enlisted too, beloveds, in this myth-making machine of war. We gobble up these stories and we retweet them and we tell them around the dinner table because we are tired of waiting for the world to be beautiful and kind, and so we settle for stories that seem to twinkle with the promise of humanity's resilience. But war is hell, and it deals only in death and destruction, not in life. No baby should be born in a bunker. Those squads of female soldiers, their guns contain the same bullets, and their grenades explode all the same. Veterans who re-enlist. I see souls who don't know who they are if they are not fighting or killing. When we withdrew our last troops from Afghanistan, remember that endless war stuffed to bursting with nonsense and aimless suffering? Dan Rather wrote, "What the world is seeing now is what the world has chose to ignore for far too long. War is hell. Its currency is death, dismemberment, desperation, and fear. It doesn't end in parades. It ends in caskets. It doesn't end in parades. And though we give out medals for valor and we have 21 gun salutes, these are shiny trinkets and loud distractions from the price paid." And the price is paid on all sides. War would seduce us into believing that the price of war is peace, but those of us who have sat with veterans, those of us who have listened to their anguish, no amount of bravado, no amount of machismo, no amount of patriotism protects the soul from the inevitable pain it feels to snuff out another life. To silence one's conscience in the name of commanding orders, war seduces us into thinking that it doesn't forever change and injure someone at their core to drive that tank that raises someone's home. And what gets me every time, what makes me sad and so tired and so despairing is that war is ancient. It has been around forever. War is ancient. We never seem to remember, we never seem to recall that the lessons of war, of it always being a bad idea, never being a good idea, that lesson is always easily within our reach, easily accessed. Alice Walker says, war is old, but it is not wise, and so too is humanity. We are old, but not wise. We have been at war my entire life, engaged in violent conflict somewhere or another, declared or otherwise. We have been at war in some form or another forever. The world is all too familiar with war. Our country and our culture is all too familiar with war. In the poem that Lauren read for us, Denise Levertov reminds us that earth would seem a bitter pomander ball, bristling with poison cloves. It should be visible that great sums of money have been exchanged, great profits made, workers gainfully employed to construct destruction, national economies distorted so that these fires, these wars may burn. Workers gainfully employed, national economies distorted. War is hell when it is also about profit, padding the pockets of Halliburton and Lockheed Martin. We rely on the machinery of the military to keep many of our loved ones employed, to send our loved ones to college. We rely on the machine of the military to lull us to sleep at night, feeling a false sense of security because our tax dollars buy razor wire instead of raises for teachers, soldiers instead of social workers, helicopters instead of health care. I am so tired of waiting, aren't you? For the world to become good and beautiful and kind. Let us take a knife and cut the world in two and see what the worms are eating at the rind. I am so tired of waiting. Aren't you? I'm tired of waiting for peace, for nations to lay down their weapons of mass devastation and to take up the cause of peace with the same vigor as they display in wreaking havoc upon humanity. What are the worms eating at the rind here today? War. It makes us rotten at the core. And it is our faithful obligation to see it for what it is, naked and unadorned with sashes and pageantry. War. It is evil. This congregation has a rich history of pacifism. From beloved ancestor Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, who was a member here and a member of the Universal Peace Union, which was chartered in Philly in 1888, all the way to Reverend Victor Carpenter, who served here from 1968 to 1976, leading candlelit vigils on the porch denouncing Vietnam and organizing draft resistance. It was even here, in these pews, that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. first heard of the concept of nonviolent resistance, inspired by the words of Mordecai Johnson and the works of Mahatma Gandhi, pacifism, a rejection of war and violence. Its roots run deep here in this place and among our people. A small delegation from here proudly attended an anti-war rally last week. But our work against war is not done. We must search our hearts and our lives for the ways in which war has seduced us, where we are tired of waiting, we have settled for cheap grace of stories that sparkle, where we believe the lie that war leads to peace instead of more destruction and further suffering. I think this is what Alice Walker is saying when she writes, Now suppose you become war. It happens to some of the nicest people on earth. We must resist the urge to become war ourselves and instead lean into the legacy of pacifism that is everywhere in this place, everywhere in this faith. I began this sermon saying the why of evil doesn't interest me so much as the what to do about it, and I think naming it is very, very powerful. To name war as wrong in all its forms, as evil in all its forms, is an act of integrity. And I want you to think about those heartstrings stretching out from your chest, arcing towards the lives besieged by war, war in Ukraine, war in Gaza, war in Yemen, war in Ethiopia. And remember, each life touched by war is connected to your life. Their suffering causes our suffering. No person should be forced to choose between their life and another, to pull the trigger on a gun or a drone, for the injury to their soul is an act that ripples out across the world. We deserve to be instruments of peace, to know a world that holds all life as sacred, worthy of awe and reverence, never to be bent towards destruction of one another. Only to meet each other with love and tenderness, a gentle compassion, and a fierce devotion to the flourishing of each other's existence. May we name war as evil, war as hell. May all those engulfed in its violence and the violence of nation-states hear our prayer today. May you know peace. May you make peace. May you be of peace in your words and your deeds. May it be so, and amen.
Hi, I'm Reverend Hannah Capaldi.
And I'm Reverend Abby Tennis. We are the ministers at the First Unitarian Church of Philadelphia, where our mission is to awaken love and justice in our lives and in the world.
We're so grateful that you watched, and we hope that the sermon connected with your soul.
We also want to invite you to join us for a live worship service every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You can always find the link to that service on our website at www.philauu.org. In these services, you'll hear words like you've just heard, and you also get a chance to greet one another, pray together, sing together, and we even hold a virtual coffee hour after services to get a chance to greet some new and old friends.
If you want to support the mission of this community and you feel moved to give, you can do so by going to the website that Reverend Abby just mentioned. You can find that link below, or you can text 215-709-5095 and follow the prompts to give.
If someone in your life needs to hear these words today, we encourage you to share this video. And again, thank you so much for watching.
We hope to see you soon.